next understand the protocol stack. So we are going into somewhat deeper concepts of the Thrift. Basically, what we have understood is how to what are the advantages and how to get benefit from the Thrift services. But internally, what are the things and components which are doing these services, which are actually generating these services? So let us understand the protocol stack. So it will be looking like this. So it's not visible actually, it's an engine. Okay, so it's everything is like a if you see a car, you just see the structure of the car. You can never see the engine, the components, the gears, and all other things are actually running continuously. Then only the vehicle can be moved from one place to another place. So similarly, the Thrift engine cannot be seen directly with this way, but what you have to understand is some internal components are actually intertied with each other, so that to get the whatever the services we are getting from that engine. That means ये internal components के वजह से ही उसका जो engine properly work करता है, so that to generate the code on the fly. Okay, so let us understand one by one the protocol stack and the Thrift engine stack actually. So if you are talking in terms of the client as well as the server, both are having the same structure. You can see here. First of all, there is a layer of input code. Second, service client, read write operation block, T protocol, T transport layer. Then so finally input output is going to be generated. Similarly, the client can receive the same instructions which are generated from the server, and these instructions are getting accumulated at the input output layer, and they are getting passed onto the T transport layer. Then it is going to the T protocol layer, then read and write operations, service client, and in that way the client can understand what is actually what is to be done with that instructions. Okay, so we are going to bisect this and we are going to see one by one. So the top portion of the stack is generated code from your Thrift definition file. That means this is the file where you are going to serve the input code. That means you are going to write a ideal file, which we have talked about in the yesterday's class. Interface definition language code is going to be prepared by the programmer, and that has to be served, that has to be pumped into the input code block. Okay, so here we are going to apply that file. Then Thrift services result in generated client and processor code. These are represented by the brown boxes in the figure. Okay, so what it will be doing is the Thrift engine takes this as the input code and accordingly process the instructions so that to generate the further set of code in the service client format. Okay, so it will be taking the help of read and write operations. Sometimes it will be reading from this code, and sometimes it is writing some instructions according to the ideal file that you have provided. Okay, then the data structures that are sent also result in generated code. These result in red boxes. Means the service client is going to read this ideal file, and accordingly it has to write something. Okay, because ideal means interface definition language file is actually meant for Thrift engine, but once the Thrift engine understands your code, it is going to write some read and write operations so that to generate the target programming language code. Are you getting? So ideal is a different language, and target file which we are talking about is completely in different programming language. So that's why the read and write operations are being done here at this place. Okay, so therefore with Thrift you can define a service and have the freedom to change the protocol and transport without regenerating your code. So we can freely define our own service, and we have some protocols and transport which are aligned, so that your input file code is not going to be changed every now and then. Suppose you are building version by version, the first version will be automatically getting created from this place, and whenever you are implementing some additional code, you don't have to bother about these outputs. They are being automatically maintained. Okay, so Thrift also includes a server infrastructure to tie the protocols and transports together. These there are blocking, non-blocking, single and multi-threaded servers available. So some structures are there. So it is actually internally supporting the singles like a single processor, multi-threading processor, and blocking, non-blocking. Non-blocking means Node.js kind of applications can also be supported. Blocking means synchronous programming kind of implementation where PHP and other languages are there. So all these services uh, for um, for the for the generation of the code is actually supported here in this way. So the protocol layer provides serialization and deserialization. Thrift supports the following protocol. Protocol layer means this. Now coming after reading and writing operations being done, then some protocols will check with the compatibility so that to do so many actions. Okay, what are they? Uh, uh, the protocols are, one is T binary protocol. Suppose in your ideal file you have a binary format, and which is encoded as numeric values as binary rather than converting to text. Okay, so some programmatic language is actually capable to process binary information in a much better way, and some programming languages are there. Generally all the programming languages generally process the numeric data because they are stack based. So stack based implementations are more faster. Okay, and binary formats and text based formats are normally they are implemented in the format of heaps. So you might be knowing the stack and heap structure. So we are not going to do study those details. Actually, what is a heap, what is a stack. So some formats are there which you have to understand. Some formats are there which sometimes provide the capability, better capability for the binary formats, and some formats are there which are actually capable, much capable to process the numeric values, uh, and some want to convert the data into text. So all these binary kind of operations uh, are being handled by this protocol, T binary protocol. Okay, so generally क्या करता है, binary to numeric convert करता है, binary to text convert करता है. So depending on your programming language, binary to text करना है, binary to numeric करना है, और in any other format, data format उसको convert करना है, ये decision लेगा T binary protocol. So T means thrift. Okay, so the name is given in that way. They have given the name. So we have to study in that way only. So T binary protocol actually doing the transitions of the binary formats, either into the numeric or into the text format. Then T compact protocol, very efficient, dense encoding of data. So compact protocol. Compact protocol means after this binary, suppose binary is actually binary. Okay, so the corresponding encoding pattern can only retrieve the data from the binary, whether it is an image, whether it is a UTF-8 encoded, or it is a UTF-16 encoded, or it is something else. So that has to be comprehended by the encoding patterns. Okay, and some different encoding patterns are there, and on those encoding patterns, so those encoding patterns with some optimization will be done by this T compact protocol. मतलब ये क्या करेगा, encoding of data है, क्योंकि binary stream of bits and stream of bits is nothing but binary. Okay, 1010 111. So all these binary has to be encoded, then only your information is an information, otherwise it is a junk. ये कौन करता है, encoders करेंगे. So encoders का भी बहुत सारा optimization करना पड़ता है, so that to streamline the traffic as well as to get the maximum benefit of the fastness as well as speedier transmission of the data. So उसको optimize करने के लिए T compact protocol use करते हैं. Second, okay. तो टी बाइनरी का क्या है रोल, इट जनरली कन्वर्ट्स इनटू द न्यूमेरिक वैल्यूज और इनटू द टेक्स्ट फॉर्मेट्स। टी कॉम्पैक्ट क्या करता है, एनकोडिंग को कॉम्पैक्ट ऑप्टिमाइजेशन देता है। then T dense protocol similar to T compact protocol which we have discussed just now, but strips of the meta information from what is transmitted and adds it back at the receiver end। ये जो टी डेंस प्रोटोकॉल क्या करता है, सपोज एवरी आपने कंप्यूटर नेटवर्क्स पढ़े हैं तो आपको आइडिया होगा, देर आर सम हेडर्स विच आर बीइंग एडेड टू एवरी पैकेट्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन इन द कंप्यूटर नेटवर्क। जो डेटा स्ट्रीम्स जाते हैं उसमें हर एक पैकेट के ऊपर हेडर्स अटैच किया जाता है, सो दैट ऑन रिसीविंग साइड what has to be done with that packet of data can be known by that receiving protocol। तो सिमिलरली ये जो डेंस प्रोटोकॉल क्या करेगा, ये जो कॉम्पैक्ट प्रोटोकॉल ने जो किया है उसमें से जो मेटा डेटा को स्ट्रिप ऑफ करेगा, स्ट्रिप ऑफ करने के बाद उसको रिसीवर को सेंड करेगा। दैट मीन्स हियर द प्रोटोकॉल इज एक्चुअली see here in the encoding pattern it is adding the metadata information so that how to process this segment or bytes of information। अब ये क्या होगा, यहाँ से लेकर क्लाइंट तक पहुंचेगा and where the metadata information will be looked upon and accordingly the processing will be applied so that to provide to the upper layer। ये ऐसा काम करेगा on the client side। T-Dense protocol is still experimental and not yet available in the Java implementation। So ये क्रॉस कंपेटेबल completely नहीं है, बहुत सारे लैंग्वेजेस में आप देख सकते हैं, बट T-Dense प्रोटोकॉल का एट द टाइम ऑफ राइटिंग दिस प्रोटोकॉल लेयर डेफिनेशन ये थोड़ा वर्किंग एक्सपेरिमेंटल मॉडल में है। ओके, देन T-JSON protocol uses JSON for encoding of the data, simple to understand। डेटा को JSON फॉर्मेट में एनकोड करेगा। T simple JSON protocol, write only protocol using JSON, suitable for passing by scripting languages। Some variations are there। JSON protocol which is encoding some data, simple JSON protocol for scripting languages के लिए पास करना है तो इसको प्रोटोकॉल यूज करेगा। ये हम स्पेसिफाई नहीं करेंगे, दिस इज ऑल इंटरनली बीइंग डन बाय द थ्रिफ्ट इंजन, वी जस्ट हैव टू नो व्हाट दे आर एक्चुअली। T-debug protocol uses a human readable text format to aid in the debugging। तो अल्टीमेटली क्या होगा, आपका जो पार्सर कंप्लीटली करने के बाद some errors if it may be throwing in a programming language that has to be understandable by the humans। Okay, so they need to be in human readable formats। so these particular things are going to be implemented by T-debug protocol। ओके, सो टी डिबग प्रोटोकॉल क्या करता है, डीबगिंग के लिए, प्रोग्रामर्स के लिए डीबगिंग इजी करने के लिए वो अपना फॉर्मेटिंग प्रोवाइड करता है। ट्रांसपोर्ट लेयर, तो ट्रांसपोर्ट लेयर इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर रीडिंग फ्रॉम एंड राइटिंग टू द वायर। Thrift supports the following। so अगर आप कंप्यूटर नेटवर्क्स को अच्छे से स्टडी किया है, so transport layer is the main layer which is responsible for actually transmitting the data from one part of the node to second part of the node in a given network। so similarly transport layer here also doing the same thing, it is having some internal protocols that are defined which are like T socket uses blocking socket input output for transport। so it uses sockets actually, computers के जो अंदर sockets को open करना, block करना for properly sending the data to another machine, it will be taken care of by this protocol। T framed transport sends data in frames। तो ट्रांसपोर्ट लेयर अगर आपने कंप्यूटर नेटवर्क अच्छे से पढ़ा है तो सॉकेट क्या है मालूम है आपको, फ्रेम्स क्या है वो भी मालूम है। ओके, एंड where is that frames, then sockets, segments यहाँ पे नहीं है क्या। so T file transport, this transport wise to a file, this transport is not included with the Java implementation। so basically whatever the transport layer in the computer network is aligned with the same kind of concept, the transport layer under the thrift engine is also doing the similar kind of thing। so this transport is required when using a non-blocking server, which is 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 using a non-bl तो फ्रेम्स में सेगमेंट्स को फ्रेम्स में कन्वर्ट करना, देन ईच फ्रेम को सर्टेन लेंथ के हिसाब से उसको ट्रिप करना. So all these are part of the framed transportation protocol. Then file transport. This transport writes to a file. So stream of data is being written into a file. So it can be synchronous as well as it can be asynchronous. Okay. So nowadays writing the files to uh, writing the content to the files is very sophisticated. We can asynchronously pass on the data without any issues. Also with the advanced programming languages like Java, .NET, and many other languages are there. So it's very easier to do nowadays. Then T memory transport uses memory for input output. Again, Java implementer uses a simple byte array. So every language is having some deficiencies also. They have pinpointedly highlighted here. Then tzlib, it is basically for the compression. Compression means you have to zip, you have to compress the data so that optimally transmit the data to another part of the node. So used in conjunction with another transport not available in the Java implement. So many protocols are actually not implemented at the Java programming language level. So what that means is, if you are generating some code, there may be chances that Java programming which is generated, Java programming files which are generated may not be competent enough as per your requirements. But other languages which they support, like .NET, PHP, many languages were there which we have discussed, Node.js, Haskell, Ruby, Python. So all these languages support all these formations. So आप आपका प्रोटोकॉल इंश्योर करेगा कि करेक्ट वे ऑफ प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज जनरेशन उसकी वजह से कैसे जनरेट कर सकते हैं. सो दिस इज हाउ all the layers are actually generating the data. Then processor. The processor takes as arguments as input and output protocol, reads data from the input, processes the data through the handler specified by the user, and then writes the data to the output. तो ये प्रोसेसर का काम है कि इसको कैसे प्रॉपरली कंप्लीटली ये इंटरकनेक्ट कैसे करके वर्कआउट कैसे करना है. तो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द implementation of the Thrift protocol stack. So what we have discussed is, we have just discussed about the some internal components of Thrift engine. So input code block, service client, read write operations, T protocol, which is heavily equipped with some different protocols. Transport layer is responsible for transmitting the data which is getting from T protocol layer and accordingly sending onto the network by in an optimized manner. Then your client is getting connected, and this client will be able to read and write operations. Again, your files are getting created automatically. Then Thrift type system. So basically some type systems are predefined in the Thrift. What they are bool, byte, double, string, integer. You can see these are the common data types which you find across all the programming languages. Okay, you take any kind of, even if it is an object oriented programming language or it is not. PHP is not an object oriented programming language. Okay, still you will find the boolean, byte, double. So these are some core data types. So these core data types are what the Thrift type system has actually defined. So these core data types are actually what the Thrift type system has actually designed and defined. Why? Because it has to provide the compatibility to all the major programming languages which are running in the industries. So that's why they have taken only common formats: bool, byte, double, string, and integer. So integer is an integer, whether it is a float, double, big int, short, it's not that much relevant. Simply it is an integer. Okay, and whereas the double is also given with that advantage. You can see here the C kind of implementations also, some byte, double, integer, but most of the programming languages support all these, but some languages are there like some programming languages where only integer is getting supported. Okay, so for that they have taken integer, and where the other double byte bool which are commonly available, like 80% of the languages are supporting, they will be applied with these additional data type implementation. So accordingly, the Thrift engine will take the decision whether to go with this or to go with this at the time of language generation, target language generation. And especially some special types are there, like binary, structs, some containers means list types, set, maps, hash maps. All these are actually supported in the format of containers that correspond to commonly available interfaces in most programming languages. Okay, so अगर आप एडवांस्ड प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज लेंगे तो इससे ज़्यादा डेटा टाइप्स आपको देखने के लिए मिलेंगे, नियरली 25 to 30 प्रोग्रामिंग डेटा टाइप्स आपको मिलेंगे, बट उसमें से ये पिक करेगा इंजन कौन सा बेस्ट सूटेबल रहेगा वो जो टारगेट डेटा टाइप के लिए, प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज के डेटा टाइप के लिए, एंड अकॉर्डिंगली उसमें उसके लिए वो राइट करेगा सिंटैक्स. The type system focuses on key types available in all programming languages and omits types. See here, it omits types that are specific to only some programming languages. अगर गिने चुने प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेजेस ही वो पर्टिकुलर डेटा टाइप को सपोर्ट करता है तो उसको वो ओमिट करेगा. ओके, so this is focusing on key types available in all the programming languages in general. Next, types categories which we discuss in some length. Thrift creators divided into types, divided this type into a few categories. Basic types. These are simplest types present in virtually every programming language, like bool, byte, double, string. Mostly fundamentally you will come across with all these data types, because without these data types the programming language is not a programming language in general. At least you will be having a couple of data types exclusively for that programming language. So they are categorized as basic. Then special. These are those which don't fit into the basic category. And special means some like suppose this list, set, map, which are not familiar with many programming languages. So they have been taken into here you can see the special types like binary, structs, all these have been taken into the second category, that is called as special category. Then structs, these are equivalent of structs or classes from popular programming languages with some limitations. And containers, these are equivalent to commonly used container types in most of the programming languages. And exceptions, these are used to handle the errors. Services, these are core concept in Thrift. They gather all the other types mentioned earlier to describe the procedures that can be called remotely. So services means they are nothing but methods. Okay. So ultimately, first of all, we are going to take the data types. So these are data types. After constructing the input ideal according to this data types formation, now all these methods are getting generated, which are called as services. So ultimately exposing services is the main purpose of the Apache Thrift. So base types, these are the base types. Boolean, you know the meaning of the bool, Boolean, what it does. Byte, this is for 8-bit, then 16-bit signed, 32-bit signed, 64-bit signed, 64-bit floating point number, this is for double, and this is a general text which is encoded in UTF-8 encoding. That means this can understand the ASCII. Okay, so this can understand the ASCII character set only. You cannot encode like Unicode or something else, because this is compatible with this UTF-8 encoding only. आप वैसे भी जनरली प्रोग्रामिंग उर्दू में या हिंदी में या मराठी में तो लिखेंगे नहीं, प्रोग्रामिंग जनरली इंग्लिश का कंस्ट्रक्शन रहता है. सो दैट इज व्हाई ASCII is 100% sufficient for this string data type. अभी तक तो हुआ नहीं है, कुछ प्रोग्रामिंग संस्कृत में करने के लिए भी ट्रायल्स चालू है, तो अभी तक तो उतना आया नहीं है अपने इंडस्ट्री में. So basically whatever you do the programming, they are constructing of simple alphabeticals from this ASCII encoding. Okay, so that's why the string is capable at UTF-8 encoding. Other than this double signed 64-bit, signed 32, 16, 8 bits are there to your help for the numerical manipulations. Then accordingly there is a boolean for your true or false implementation. Then special types. This is a binary, you know the meaning of the binary. Sequence of bytes. 10, 10, 10. So this is 1 byte. Maybe according to your machine, this can be 32 bit, this can be 32 bits. Okay, 1 byte can be a 32 bit or it can be a 64 bit. So when you write 10, 10, 10, 10, this becomes a binary, and upon that the encoding will be applied. Structs. A struct has a set of strongly typed fields. This is a struct example. Here we have taken I32, whereas this is the number that is given. I64 big number, this is a data, the variable name. Okay, so these are defined here as well as initialized. These two are initialized, and in the otherwise these two are only defined. Okay, so there we have defined variables and we have initialized the variables also in a given struct, and they pretty much similar to the P-like constructs. So अगर आपको C आता है, C++ भी आता है, तो struct you can easily identify, and what is the purpose of struct, what is where it is being used, अभी अपने क्लास में उसका डिस्कशन नहीं होगा. Containers, lists, they are generally mapped to the array list or C++ STL vectors. Then then sets, maps to an STL set, Java hash set, etc. So PHP do not support sets. Okay, so PHP do not support sets, so that's why it is treated similar to the list map. So there are many combinations according to the programming language requirements, and accordingly the Thrift engine will take the decision how to map a particular data type to the corresponding programming language data type. जो आईडीएल में जो डेटा टाइप दिया है उसके हिसाब से जो टारगेट लैंग्वेज अगर पीएचपी है तो कौन सा डिसीजन लेना चाहिए, जावा है तो कौन सा डिसीजन लेना चाहिए. सो ऑल दीज इट विल टेक केयर ऑफ ऑटोमेटिकली फ्रॉम योर साइड. ओके, आपको कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है. द मैप्स टू एन एसटीएल मैप, मैप्स आर similar to the hash map which you find in Java or in .NET or in some other programming language. All the above are the defaults but can be customized to correspond to different types of any language. So for this reason, custom code generation directives have been added. Okay, so there are some exceptions there. The custom code directives are there. So some exceptions are also there along with these data types. So exclusively we have to know that some are base types. Okay, so the first slide is about these basic slides which you have boolean, byte, all these things. Second one is special types. So special types is actually some from this which do not fall into the basic category, and it will be binary as well as structs. And the third one is containers, that is list, set, map. So these are being categorized in that way. And exceptions, they inherit from the native exception base class, and every programming language is having some exceptions, and so here it will be defined in this way: exception, invalid operation, something like this. Okay, so exceptions are supported. Services, as we have talked, service is nothing but your representation of a class. Okay, so service is actually, as we have discussed here, services are the actually the methods or the functions which you want to expose to the client machine, so that to generate the code automatically. So ये जो services को लिखने का तरीका क्या है? Service is nothing but a kind of class which is having some methods. So it's like represented in this way, service with this name, and it is having the method void set. This is the second method get, which throws some error, and this is third method. So in that way, you will be having some combination of methods and which will be exposed as a service. Okay, so it's a parallel term is in the object oriented programming. It is generally called as a class, but generally these are being exposed. Only these are being exposed.